Hey guys, welcome to this week's Real Estate Q&A, where I take 5 of the top commenters in the last week to let you know exactly what's going on in the housing market. Also, in this video, if it's okay with you, I'd like to talk about September's U.S. housing data that recently populated, and I want to show you what cities in the U.S. have gained and lost the most in home values. I also want to talk about what's happening with rental rates across the country. We all know that current mortgage rates have remained at a 20-year high, and it's one of the number one reasons why we're seeing home price declines, as most home buyers require a mortgage in order to purchase a home. And with the rising property taxes and homeowners insurance, home buyers just simply can't afford to buy a home right now. And in only a few clicks on a Google search, you can see for yourself that the Housing Affordability Index across America is now really starting to put the squeeze on sellers for them to drop their prices. Also in this video, I'm going to show you how home price declines may not be as accurate as you're being told by the mainstream media. Welcome back. And if this is your first time watching, I'm Todd Sachs, a real estate broker in the state of Maryland, and our channel is dedicated to keeping you informed on everything real estate. It's no surprise that persistently higher mortgage rates remain the number one driver on the drastic decline on the home sales in the U.S. Data has shown that in many U.S. housing markets, over 30% of the existing homes for sale have experienced at least one price decline in recent weeks. And for many of these home sellers, their newly reduced price still isn't enough to entice home buyers to take action. Mortgage applications for home buyers are at a low that we haven't seen since the 1980s, and many of the industry professionals are wondering whether they should find a new type of work. Now, let's look at some data that Zillow has collected from the multiple listing services, often referred to as the MLS. And in a moment, I'll show you that even though this data is showing the pain in the housing market, it may not be completely accurate. All right, so as we're reviewing September's data, I want to look at the month-over-month information opposed to year-over-year. You see, we really can't use year-over-year because in 2022, we watched a complete shift in the market as most home buyers quickly stopped paying over-appraised value for homes, and the buyer demand has basically fallen off a cliff nationwide. So as we look at the home value index here, only 14 cities experienced home price appreciation. And it looks like in the country, the city with the highest price appreciation month over month was San Diego, California. Miami, Florida in second, and Hartford, Connecticut in the number 3 spot. The biggest losers looks like San Antonio, Texas, Portland, Oregon, and Minneapolis, Minnesota, with Dallas, Texas trailing in. And this may come as a glimmer of hope for many home buyers as home prices seem to be on the decline. In this October 10th article on businessinsider.com, it's titled, "Home Buyers Are Finally Seeing the Light at the End of the Tunnel, but it is going to be painful for homeowners and sellers." The article starts out by saying the housing market is in an ugly place right now for buyers. And while things may be stabilizing, not sure what they mean by that, but that just means pressure will likely shift from buyers to sellers. Now, buyers, I bet you're glad to hear that. And Redfin's CEO Glenn Kelman is quoted in this article by saying it's been a slow building disaster. Now, let's talk about that for a minute. Just how slow building has it been? We went from really mid-2020 to, let's just call it mid-2022, where we saw like gangbuster price appreciation, in some markets as much as 45-50% home price appreciation. I don't think that's a very slow-moving disaster at all. It goes on to say that some buyers could soon start to see some big drops in prices. Now, isn't that funny that businessinsider.com is now starting to publish such a thing? And David Rosenberg, Rosenberg Research President and former Chief North American Economist at Merrill Lynch, told Insider in February that house prices could fall by as much as 25% from their peak in 2022. Now, here's something I want to show you guys that you probably haven't seen before. And it's kind of like a spoiler alert, because for all of the data that's being reported on what houses are selling for right now, they're missing a small piece of information that, quite honestly, could really change what you feel about home prices and how much they're really coming down. You see, when you buy a house, there is the actual list price. Then there's the price that the house is considered sold for. And then there's something called a seller concession. And guys, this is what is really misleading in the housing market, because you see, over the last several years, we really haven't seen any seller concessions or seller contributions, or better put, for those that don't know the industry terms, cash back to the buyer. Now, there's a couple different ways that a seller can offer cash back to a buyer. One is from the seller helping the buyer with their closing costs. Another way is where they can give the buyer cash back at settlement for things like home inspection items that were really unacceptable and that were negotiated after the purchase price was established. And this could be things that need repair now or maybe need repair in the future. But let's take a look at two examples that I wanted to show you as to what's currently happening now that we haven't seen in quite some time. All right, guys, so to protect those involved, I've blacked out the areas that deal with the listing company, the address, and the seller's information. Here we're looking at the back end of what us agents and brokers can see that we fill out once a house goes to close. In this particular listing, we're going to focus on the lower right-hand information here. And the house actually closed on September 14th. The original list price we can see up here on the left-hand side was $400,000. The last list price was $400,000, but the close price was $395,000. That means the price that gets entered into the public record or the tax record where the property is assessed at this value, it was reduced by $5,000 from list price and closed at $395,000. Now, here's what you don't see. In order for the seller to sell this home to this buyer, they gave the buyer $10,000 in seller contribution or cash back at the closing table. Our next example here shows that the list price was $395,000. This house closed on September 21st, and the close price was $377,000. So the difference between the list price and the close price was a reduction to the buyer of $18,000, right? Well, not so fast, because in addition to that $18,000 price cut, the seller gave the buyer at the closing table $11,310. Now, the important thing here, guys, is that we are seeing this more now than we've seen over, like I said, the last several years, when sellers are basically offering nothing and getting everything in return, including free rent until they found another place to go. Now, what should we take away from this seller contribution or cash back? A couple of things. Number one, the home value that's being reported as the sold value is not reflecting this cash back to make the transaction happen. Also, the important thing to know here is this number, the closed number, is where typically everyone gets paid. So if you're the seller, you may consider that you're kind of being shorted a little bit because you're paying commissions in most cases on the close price amount, not including the cash that you forked over to the buyer to make the deal happen. And this, guys, is what just contributes to my frustration in the data that's being pushed out in mainstream media and how, unless you have all of the details, the information's inaccurate. Now, wouldn't you agree as a buyer or a seller that you would like to know all of the facts that's happening right now in the housing market? I guess that's where I can say if you haven't subscribed to our channel, maybe you'd like to do so now so that you stay informed every time we post content just like this. It also may be a great time for me to say, please share our video because that will help any buyers or sellers that you may know, hoping to know all the facts about the real estate transaction, get the information that they need. And before I go away on the seller cashback topic, I'd also like to say that by not reporting all of this data, it really skews the comps as far as what the home actually ended up selling for with all things considered. And a lot of that is from the actual condition of the home. And the buyers getting this cash back doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to actually fix the house or do the repairs that they negotiated to make the deal happen. So if you're looking to buy or sell a home and you want a great agent who understands exactly what's going on with today's market and to help you strategize to get your best deal, either buying or selling, then go ahead and reach out to me and let's talk. If you're not in Maryland, that's okay. I have great contacts all across the country, probably somebody in your city I'd be happy to connect you with. Now, before we jump into today's Q&A, I want to quickly show you what's happening with home inventory in America. Now, as we look at the inventory in the U.S., it's important to know that any of the bars to the left are declines in inventory, anything to the right are increases in inventory. And as we do a quick overview, it's obvious to see that things are increasing in inventory, not decreasing. And so let's just take a look at some of the big areas where we see the largest increase. Cincinnati, Ohio, San Francisco, California, Boston, Massachusetts seem to be seeing the highest month-over-month inventory, along with Louisville, Kentucky, and Kansas City, Missouri. And then leading the chart on inventory declines is Buffalo, New York. Then comes in Sacramento, California, Detroit, Michigan, Virginia Beach, and Hartford, Connecticut. These are the cities that are seeing the biggest inventory declines month over month. And then lastly, let's take a look at the new listings that hit the market in September. And what I want to pay attention to here is not really who has the most, right? What I really want to pay attention is who has really bridged the gap where, new listings hitting the market are actually close to what we had pre-pandemic, and in some cases have exceeded pre-pandemic numbers. The cities that have exceeded these pre-pandemic levels are Austin, Texas, San Antonio, Texas, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and then finally, New Orleans, Louisiana. These are the cities that have exceeded this pre-pandemic new listing inventory. And then one of the cities that hasn't kept up here, you can see New York, far from getting close to that pre-pandemic inventory. Now let's take a look at the rental index to show what's happening to rental rates across America. In this chart, you'll see that 23 markets are showing rising rents, with Milwaukee and Virginia Beach leading the increases, and 28 markets either flattening or declining, with Austin, Texas leading the declines. And if you are looking to rent on publicnow.com, there's an article that says apartments.com releases rent growth report for third quarter of 2023. This article says that vacancy rates are ticking up in higher priced apartment inventory, and that if it's a mid-level or a lower priced apartment complex, the rents seem to be stabilized and in some cases are increasing. But the shocker here is that I don't think that any of these apartment owners or multifamily investors are prepared for an additional 554,000 new apartments that are new construction slated to be finished this year. And with all of these new apartments coming online, this article says that this type of inventory growth we haven't seen since the 1980s. Now, with all of that data out of the way, let's jump into our Q&A. Our first commenter says, to answer question, what homeowner needs to be aware of are taxes and insurance. These rates are going by telling buyers you need to learn. You're supposed to educate them. I think what this commenter is saying is I didn't do a good enough job in my last video Tuesday night as we were talking about the increase in property taxes and homeowners insurance. So let me be more clear right now. When you're buying a home, the payment that you're signing up for is probably going to go up every single year. And what I mean by that is even though you locked in at an interest rate and a purchase price for your home, and that payment will stay locked in for, let's just say, the term of your loan, like 30 years, and that has nothing to do with the escrow amounts for your property taxes and homeowner's insurance. And one of the things that we know is that every single year, the county is going to think that your property has appreciated and is worth more money, and they're going to collect for that. As well as the insurance company is saying, hey, as price appreciation continues year over year like it traditionally does, the cost of building will rise as well. So if your home structure gets damaged or burns down, the replacement value will continue to rise year over year. Therefore, when you get your insurance premium renewals, they're going to reflect a higher replacement cost and you'll be paying more money for your policy. Now, the problem that we're really experiencing with homeowners insurance is that in some states, the insurance companies are canceling policies altogether. I recently said in a video that one of our own clients here settled on a property and then received a letter from their insurance company saying that they were canceling them in 30 days. So many people think that the price that they have for their policy is guaranteed for the year, and it's not. In this particular case, they sent an insurance adjuster or underwriter out to the home to see its conditions firsthand. Now, some insurance companies will do this and some won't. It's kind of random and it's like the luck of the draw. But in this case, they said that the roof needed to be replaced and that there were some structural repairs needed on the deck railing. These are the reasons that they claimed that they were issuing a cancellation notice. Now, if your insurance policy becomes canceled, that becomes a problem for you and your lender because you said when you bought the house that you would protect the bank's asset by making sure that that property is covered with insurance. And what happened in this case is the lender will actually find an insurance policy for you. And in these cases, these insurance policies may be 2, 3, or 4 times the amount of the policy that you were initially quoted. This is why it's very important, guys, that you make sure that you're not stretching too far when you buy a home because that locked in monthly payment that you bargained for is guaranteed to go up. Our next commenter says, the old doomers have finished their grift after being wrong for 3 years. This opens up places for new doomers. Why do they have to make YouTube videos if they are so smart? Why don't any of the doomers run a fund and show us how it's done? Well, all right now, I'm not sure who you're referring to here, but let's say it's me. I started reporting the housing market shift in April of 2022, not 3 years ago. And the reason why I report and educate consumers on our channel is to provide information that they may not be getting from the backward-looking data and what's being reported by those with special interest. And I think that most people would agree that regardless of who you voted for to run this country, nationally or locally, we're all, well, at least except for the top 5% earners, feeling affordability issues here in the United States. Now, you may call me a doomer, but I honestly believe that there are many people that feel exactly like I do and are simply fed up of the bullshit that we're being told. Our next commenter is talking about that Zillow AI has been manipulating the housing market, and I guess they're referring to their Zestimate. Now, when Zestimate first came out, there was an article back in 2016 on GeekWire that was titled How Zillow Came Up with the Zestimate and Why It Has Become Such a Hit. So the article says that the idea for the Zestimate began when Barton and Frink were both looking to purchase new homes. They found themselves doing a lot of basic math using publicly available data on the sales of comparable properties to determine what they thought the available houses in a neighborhood should cost. It goes on to say that nationally, the Zestimate has a median error rate of 7.9% according to Zillow's website. That might sound small, but on a $500,000 house, that amounts to $37,500 variation in a price. It also says that in some neighborhoods, the Zestimate can be even further off, as in the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area, where the median error is 10% according to Zillow. Now, you may say that was back then, but the issue is through the years, Zillow's inaccuracies gave buyers and sellers a false sense of home value. People frequently have said to me, well, Zillow says my home is worth X amount of dollars. And buyers have said, well, I should probably offer this much money because Zillow says the home is worth it. Well, folks, it seems like not much has changed with Zestimate from 2016 till now, because this next article on therealdeal.com, it says that Zillow reports $880 million loss on failed home flipping business. The article says that the company took its algorithmic-driven home flipping business off the market in November of 2021 when the tech platform failed to precisely forecast changes in home prices. Well, Zillow, what do you have to say about all of the people that also relied on your data that may have also overpaid for their home? Our next commenter, Rhonda, says, Todd, I can feel your frustration with NAR. That's the National Association of Realtors. She says, leave them. Start your own MLS and invite other non-NAR brokerages to join. She says, join the 1.5 million agents that are not in NAR and that I've been in the business long enough that I could do business without them. Well, I hear you, Rhonda. I'm not sure if you're in residential or commercial, but I'm sure that 1.5 million agents not in the National Association of Realtors are probably in commercial real estate sales. Commercial sales are completely different in nature. The buyers and sellers, they actually spend thousands of dollars with real estate attorneys drafting sales and lease contracts. Residential clients are not going to spend money for real estate attorneys, and that is one of the main benefits of being a realtor under the National Association of Realtors. We get state and local forms contracts that are pretty neutral in favor to buyers and sellers. And the state and local associations would need to separate from the National Association of Realtors in order for us to have the freedom that you're referring to. You see, the way things are set up right now, if a real estate broker is not affiliated with the National Association of Realtors, they have zero MLS access. It would be very difficult to show properties because of the electronic lockbox system. And we wouldn't have access to the state and local forms that are necessary to save buyers and sellers from spending thousands of dollars with real estate attorneys. And our next commenter says, a data point in April of 2022, I got an investor offer on my 3-bedroom, 1-bath Florida house for $285,000. I was not ready to sell. In April of 2023, that same investor offered me $175,000. I sold the house using a realtor in May of 2023 for $270,000 cash. But that cash was pulled from a HELOC on a buyer's Orlando property. All right, so I want to talk about two main points that pertain to this comment. Number one, in April of 2022, this seller was offered $285,000 for their home. They weren't ready. This offer was directly from an investor and probably had no real estate commissions involved. Just 1 year later, the same seller had to hire an agent as well as took a $15,000 price cut. This, my friends, is exactly what I'm referring to when I say home prices are on the decline. The second point I want to make here is that we hear all the time about cash offers. And the issue with the cash offers is they're not exactly what you would expect. Very few home buyers can afford to pay cash for a home unless they're selling a home where they had a considerable amount of equity and they're downsizing. A lot of cases, what we've seen with cash offers is that the buyers get the cash from somewhere else. Maybe they've taken out a loan on their stock account because borrowing was really cheap, or they took a home equity line of credit on another property that they have a lot of equity in. Also, at a time when, borrowing money was really cheap. Those deals are done. We're not seeing as many cash offers from these buyers because the cost all across the board, no matter whether you're getting a short-term loan on your stock account or that home equity line of credit, prices to borrow have simply gone through the roof. All right, there you have it, guys. If you haven't subscribed, like I said earlier, you can take an opportunity, do so now. Smash that alert bell. You'll know every time we upload content just like this. And don't keep all this information to yourself. Please share it with your friends. And please keep those comments and questions coming. You never know, you might just be on next week's Real Estate Q&A. See you next time. Sachs Realty, Maryland broker number 607720, office number 443-318-4514, equal housing opportunity.